Welcome to a March Madness Tournament of Champions group stage matchup. Today's match is being played by the build phase and features Baron Mordo facing off against the Falconer. Baron Mordo is a deck by Robert Geller and the Falconer is a deck by Nick Melberg. I just want to take an opportunity to say thanks again to Versus Games Podcast and Team Attack Podcast for putting in the effort to set up this event so we can have our greatest hits review of the year of 2017 in Versus. So Baron Mordo rolls a 10 on the dice roll, and the Falconer rolls a 6. Baron Mordo opts to go first, and as the pilot of the Falconer, I can tell you he has a very annoying hand. So Mordo rows a Predator ship blue location on his first turn and recruits Arnim Zola. Falconer discards the 7-cost Jungle Hunter. Now, this is a typical play when you have to discard early game. You throw away your late game because you're hoping that you will be able to draw into those late game cards again before they are relevant. Both Zola and Mordo are placed in the back row as we go into main phase, and the blue location that was rowed is flipped to Baron Mordo's power to force another discard from the Falconer. This time it's a 5-cost Zatanna. Falconer draws 2 and then also places a Predator ship blue location into the row. Now the Falconer starts with the Falcon drone in play, and this causes the other player to have to reveal every card they draw. Falconer gains experience when cards are revealed, so technically he should already have 1 experience at this point, but we do catch this here in a moment. Falconer declares an attack into Zola, and Mordo pitches a location from hand to search the deck for another copy of Zola. This causes another card to be revealed to prove that he sought out Zola, and at this point, we catch the experience. You can see Mordo's hand is revealed due to the Falcon drone. It was a Jungle Hunter and another location. Fisk Tower is rowed for Mordo going into turn 2. And at this point, the hope on the Falconer side has just got to be that we can get some bodies on the board before the hand is fully decimated. At this point, Joe realized that the art on the Leviathan Demolisher is apparently so similar to Zola that he got the wrong card. Zola comes into play as a turn 2 recruit, and Falconer is forced to discard yet another card. This time I opted for the 2-drop Hybo. Then a blue is paid using Fisk Tower, and a 4th card is discarded. So at this point, Falconer has seen a total of 9 cards, 4 of which have ended up in the KO pile, without having any game effect. Mordo levels up. Mordo declares an attack into Falconer, and he gains his first wound. Valverd Jungle placed into the row. This will give you something to pay for the Primeval Hunter, although at this point the hand advantage is real on Mordo's side of the board. That right there was one of those moves that you do when you just want to show your opponent what's in your hand, but not actually use it. Alright, ultimately I opt to put both Primeval Hunter and the Falcon Drone in the back row and just clear Zola off with the Falconer. Mordo reveals 2 locations. Falconer gets another experience. The thinking here was that I couldn't afford to allow Falconer to go face down, and I don't want to lose characters. My only hope is to try to win this on the board. And while Mordo is devastating to the opposing player's hand, he's not a combat beast. Mordo rows a yellow location and recruits Baron Zemo, which results in sowing distrust in my hand and targeting my what would have been my turn 3 recruit. So Taskmaster hits the KO pile. If you're keeping track, at this point I've discarded 5 of the 11 cards I've looked at this game. So Mordo went into the Falconer, which wounded him, and then Zemo went into the Primeval Hunter, and I was able to bounce that attack. Because the Primeval Hunter does not have range, there's no strike back. So, I got a little too excited about my attack there. I rode another Valverd Jungle, played a Hivo, and then almost started declaring attacks before the formation step, which is one of those amateur mistakes that we should be better than. Hivo clears Zemo off the board, and then Combo Stick, Primeval Hunter goes into Baron Mordo. Now, this may have been a miscalculation. This does get a wound on Mordo and allow the Falconer to level up going into my opponent's next turn. However, being capricious with wounds with such tenuous board control and losing the combo stick value probably in the long run didn't help the game. If anyone else is having anxiety about the fact that Joe puts the cars in his road going 2 different directions, I sympathize. Turn 4 resource is a Fist Tower for Baron Mordo. At this point, with 1 wound on Mordo and 2 on Falconer, we're both level 2. However, he immediately uses Mordo's level 2 and levels Falconer back down, which allows him to stun Falconer and not take strike back. Now, this puts Falconer in an unfortunate position. Well, I do have the necessary experience to level up. Mordo being face-up prevents that. Turn 4, resource is a face-down card, and then recruit Nebula with a net launcher and pay a blue to stun and lock Mordo down. This brings level 2 Falconer back into play, and Nebula, because of Falconer being level 2, is a 6/6. Vault is rode on Baron Mordo's side with no recruits, which gives Falconer nothing to attack with the board advantage that I finally built. Not showing any blues and having rode a face down card on turn 4 does not make the net launcher very threatening. So now we're feeling the sting again of early game discards. It's annoying when it happens, but this is a turn when Satana could have come into play and actually done some work. Instead of building additional board control, I opt to recruit a med kit. And use the med kit once the main phase happens to reduce my wound count back down to 2. The formation here is entirely defensive. 2 more locations drawn by Baron Mordo. He rows a Predator ship going into turn 6. So this is 2 turns in a row that Mordo has not recruited a character, which seems like that would mean that Mordo is in a tough spot. That's really not the case. He declares Mordo into the Primeval Hunter and clears that off the board. And while Falconer has more overall stuff in play, it's all pretty anemic. Another face down resource for the Falconer on turn 6, and Satana enters play. Again, showing no blues to use her effect. Now that Baron Mordo's face up again, Falconer moves back up front to be able to actually act aggressively. So Falconer sent into Mordo, which is insufficient attack to actually stun Mordo. However, the Falconer's level 2 ability allows him to stun a character by paying a green when he strikes them in combat, and Mordo gains his 2nd wound. Hand reveal from Mordo is another location and 1 character. So we're going into turn 7 with 2 wounds on each main character and considerable more resources on the board for Falconer. Mordo rows a yellow basic location and recruits a jungle hunter, which facilitates searching yet another location and jumping even further ahead. Valvern Jungle enters play, which makes Jungle Hunter even better than he was. Now, with the available yellows, Mordo has it well within his power to level down Falconer and then just run over this board. At this point, I opted to start tracking wounds on both the main level 1 and level 2 characters, since they're swapping back and forth with such great frequency. This is yet another turn where Mordo comes into the Falconer after shrinking him back down to level 1 and puts a wound on him. Jungle Hunter declares an attack into Satana with stealth and powers up one time to avoid getting stunned back. You can tell I'm getting tired of playing the discard deck when I start rowing supporting characters face up. So it's looking pretty bad at this juncture. So Falconer plays over here, which allows him to target a character in the KO pile and put it into play. Which should have allowed me to search for a resource, which didn't happen. That was a misplay. So at this point, a team attack is declared into Jungle Hunter because there's really no other way to clear it off the board, which puts yet another wound onto the Falconer. Now, had I searched out a Valverdin jungle right there and been able to stealth attack the back row for enough to wound, that would have been much different. However, even if that had happened, going into this next turn with a face-up Falconer, Jungle Hunter would have been big enough to stun him. Mordo is showing the necessary resources to level Falconer back down, and the end result would have been the same, with an extra win coming from Thanos.